Let's pull back the curtain on something that affects literally every company: building a great team. We're going to follow the entire journey from the moment a job gets posted to a new employee's first day and really see what it takes to find that perfect fit. We've all been there, haven't we? You spend hours polishing your resume, you write that perfect cover letter, you hit submit, and then it just goes into this digital black hole. So what really happens next? Well, it might feel like a total mystery, but it's actually a very deliberate, step-by-step process. So we're going to break this whole journey down into 4 key stages. First, we'll look at the hiring blueprint. That's the overall strategy. Then we'll see how companies set the stage before you even see the job ad. After that, we dive into the selection gauntlet that applicants go through. And finally, we'll see what happens after the job offer with placement and training. All right, first up, the hiring blueprint. Before a single resume even gets a glance, there's a whole foundation that has to be laid. And trust me, this is so much more than just paperwork. It's the strategic plan that shapes the future of the entire company. So what is personal selection at its core? I mean, what are we really talking about here? It's basically the formal process of sorting all the applicants. The easiest way to picture it is like a giant funnel. You have this huge pool of applicants pouring in the top, and the process is designed to carefully narrow that pool down and down until you're left with the one person who's the absolute best fit. And this right here, this is the whole point. This process has to be a careful, thorough analysis. When a company gets this right, they build an incredible team. But when they treat it like some meaningless formality they just have to get through, that costs them big time. We're talking wasted money, lost time, and a huge hit to productivity. It's really the difference between building your house on solid rock versus sand. Okay, on to our second stage, setting the stage. Now, you might think the process begins when you send in your application, but nope. A ton of absolutely crucial prep work happens behind the scenes to make sure the right kinds of people are even applying in the first place. It all starts with these 3 steps, in this order. First, a company has to forecast its needs. Look ahead and figure out what roles they're going to need. Then they create a super detailed job specification to define exactly what that job is. And only then do they actually start recruiting, which is the part where they go out and find people. Let's zoom in on that job specification part, because it actually has 2 pieces. There's the job description, which is the what. It lists out all the duties and responsibilities. Then you've got the job specification, and that's the who. It outlines the specific skills, qualifications, and experience a person needs to actually succeed. And that brings us to recruitment. Look, the goal here isn't just to get a flood of applicants. It's a really targeted effort to find the right number of qualified people. Whether you're filling a spot that's now empty or adding someone new for growth, it has to be strategic. It's not just a matter of throwing an ad online and hoping for the best. Okay, the stage is set, the applications are in. Now we enter the part that we're all probably most familiar with from the outside, the selection gauntlet. This is where the real choosing begins. So from inside the company, here's how the process kicks off. First, HR gets an official request, a requisition for a new hire. Then they start sifting through all the application forms. After that, they'll do some preliminary interviews to start narrowing the field, and a lot of times they'll use some kind of employment test to measure skills. And hey, don't sleep on the power of that initial application form. Seriously, it is absolutely essential. It's the very first piece of structured info a company gets about you. It's how they can compare everyone's background, education, and experience in a standardized way against that who list they made earlier. Now, what about that first interview, which is usually just a quick phone screen? Well, it actually does 2 jobs at once. For the company, sure, it's a way to shrink the applicant pool, but it's also a chance for you to get more info about them and decide if you're even still interested. It's a 2-way street, for sure. So if you make it past that initial screen, you might come face to face with some tests. They generally fall into one of 3 main buckets: performance tests, paper and pencil tests, and then these more mysterious projective tests. Let's quickly break down what those are. This cable lays it out pretty clearly. A performance test is simple. Can you actually do a key part of the job? A timed typing test is a perfect example. A paper and pencil test is more about what you know. Think of it like a quiz. And then you have projective tests, like the famous Rorschach ink blots. These are much rarer these days, but they're designed to get a glimpse into someone's underlying personality by seeing how they interpret things. So, you did it. You made it through the gauntlet and you got the job offer. Awesome! But the journey isn't over yet. Now we hit our final stage, placement and training. This is a whole new beginning that's all about getting you settled in and making sure you have what you need to succeed. I absolutely love this quote. It's just so honest. It admits that no matter how amazing your selection process is, there's no perfect formula. When you place a new person on a team, you're basically running an experiment. You're testing hypothesis that this person is going to thrive with this manager and this team. And that brings us to a really key idea. Successful placement is like a three-dimensional match. It is not just about having the skills for the job. It's also about having the right chemistry with your new boss and, just as important, fitting in with the dynamics of the rest of the team. When you get all three of those pieces right, that's the secret sauce to making a new hire really stick around. The very first thing that happens after you're placed? Orientation. Some people call it induction. This is basically where you get the lay of the land, you learn the company culture, the rules, who's who. The whole point is to make that transition from being an outsider to an insider as smooth as possible. Now, for jobs that are more hands-on and require a lot of specific skills, you'll often see something called apprenticeship training. This can look a few different ways. Sometimes it happens entirely at the company, on the job. Other times it might be at a special training center. And pretty often, it's a hybrid of both. You learn the theory in a classroom, and then you apply it in the real world. And finally, it's so important to remember that training is not a one-and-done thing. This slide shows the huge difference between job training, which happens right at the beginning to get a new employee up to speed, and retraining. Retraining is what happens continuously throughout your career to keep your skills sharp and up to date with all the new technology and changes. This whole idea leaves us with a really big question for today's workplace. We've just walked through this incredibly detailed process, all designed to find the one perfect candidate. But in a world that changes so fast, what's actually more important? Is it perfecting that initial selection process? Or is it building a culture of continuous retraining that allows really great people to adapt and grow over time? That's the puzzle every organization has to solve. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.